Listen to this for 20 seconds and decide if Washington is about to rewrite your paycheck. The White House has told agencies to prepare not just for a routine shutdown, but for permanent cuts to entire programs if funding lapses at the end of September. Not furloughs, actual eliminations. That means real jobs, real services, and real communities on the line. If federal spending is the backbone of countless towns, what happens when that spine is snapped on purpose? Stay with me, because I'm going to walk through what's changing, who's in the crosshairs, and what it means for your wallet, your city, and the broader economy. Quick gut check before we go deeper. Would you support permanent cuts in a shutdown, or do you think agencies should reopen unchanged once funding returns? Tell me in the comments right now. 5 seconds, go. Here's where this breaks from the old script. In past shutdowns, so-called non-essential workers stayed home temporarily, then returned with back pay after Congress passed a deal. Disruptive, yes, but reversible. This time, guidance from the Budget Office pushes agencies to identify programs that will not be funded after September and to draft plans to end them for good if they don't align with the administration's priorities. That's a sea change. Instead of pressing pause, Washington might press delete. The memo's logic is stark. If a program is not legally required and lacks alternative funding, it shouldn't continue. The translation for everyday life is even starker. If your job sits inside one of those programs, the shutdown wouldn't just interrupt your paycheck, it could end it. If you work in or around federal programs, you already feel the chill. Contractors freeze hiring. Local governments slow projects that rely on federal partners. Households cut back spending because paychecks look uncertain. Economists have a term for this, the multiplier. Every federal paycheck supports rent, groceries, childcare, local restaurants, and car repairs. Remove thousands of those paychecks at once, and the shock travels outward, first to families, then to neighborhoods, then to small businesses. When the government sneezes, entire counties catch a cold. Now, not every program is vulnerable. The big mandatory pillars, Social Security, Medicare, Veterans Health and Benefits, military operations, federal law enforcement, border operations, and air traffic control, continue through a shutdown. Those functions are insulated by law or national security. But many services funded by annual appropriations do not enjoy that shield. If their dollars expire, their people do too, unless Congress moves or the White House reconsiders. That distinction between mandatory and discretionary is boring jargon until it becomes a letter that says your position is eliminated. What's driving the clash on Capitol Hill? The calendar, the numbers, and the politics. The current funding window ends at the close of September. The House has advanced a short extension to keep operations running, while the Senate wants negotiations over health-related spending and safety net cuts before agreeing to anything short and clean. The president has signaled he won't return to the table unless the other side drops demands. That is the bargaining position, simple, hard, and risky. And because the clock does not stop, every hour without agreement raises the odds that agencies move from contingency planning to execution. Critics call the permanent cut guidance intimidation, use people's livelihoods to force concessions. Supporters say the federal government carries too many low-impact programs and that a reckoning is overdue. Both statements can be true in part. Governments do accrete inefficiencies. They also deliver essential services that don't have private substitutes, food inspection, disaster response, research grants, passports, public lands, school support, and the quiet plumbing of modern life. The challenge is to separate what's wasteful from what's vital, and that takes time, evidence, and sunlight. Let's talk scale. In a typical shutdown, roughly 4 in 10 federal employees are labeled non-essential. That translates into hundreds of thousands of workers told to stay home. If a substantial slice of those positions were converted from pause to permanently gone, the short-term disruption could morph into a lasting contraction. Unemployment would tick up in agency-heavy regions, consumer spending would sag, and state budgets that rely on federal matching funds would feel immediate strain. Lenders would see more late payments. Small businesses that cater to federal workers would watch foot traffic drop. The ripple would look less like a splash and more like a tide going out. Transparency is its own battleground. Usually, agencies publish contingency plans so employees and the public know what continues, what stops, and who is affected. This round, the draft plans for eliminations are not being posted widely, which heightens anxiety and fuels suspicion. When people don't know whether their program is on the line, they act as if it could be. That uncertainty becomes an economic headwind all by itself. There's also the fiscal backdrop nobody can ignore. The national debt has blown past eye-watering milestones, and voters across parties say they want lawmakers to treat it as a top priority. The call for discipline is real, but discipline and design matter. If you want leaner government, the efficient way is a structured review that measures outcomes and sunsets waste, not a shock therapy that stumbles into court challenges and whiplashes local economies. So, what actually happens next? Best case, Congress passes a clean extension before the deadline, agencies stay open, and permanent cuts come off the table, while negotiators hash out a broader deal. Second best, a short shutdown ends quickly with funding restored and workers made whole, as in prior episodes. Worst case, the government crosses into October unfunded, agencies follow the guidance to terminate selected programs, and the country begins a real-time experiment in downsizing by decree. Once jobs and know-how walk out the door, they are expensive to rebuild. There's a deeper power story here. Budgets are moral documents. They show what a government values when choices are hard. Prioritize debt reduction, say it plainly, and vote for a plan, not just a cliff. Want to protect core social supports? Put the numbers behind them. Believe certain programs no longer make sense? Hold hearings, release the evidence, and take the votes. That is how you align priorities with accountability. Using the threat of permanent cuts as a bargaining chip blurs that accountability because the decision to slash arrives disguised as no choice. If you're a federal employee or contractor listening right now, here's the practical checklist. First, know your program's funding source, mandatory, multi-year, or annual. Second, ask leadership whether your office has received draft plan requests and how they're assessing critical versus discretionary functions. Third, stabilize your household finances where you can. Build a short cushion, contact lenders early, and know your rights around furloughs and back pay. Fourth, stay connected with your union or professional association for real-time guidance. Preparation does not mean panic, it means options. For the rest of us, the question is civic as much as economic. Do we want shutdowns to become tools for reshaping government permanently? Or should they remain temporary alarms that force negotiation but do not predetermine outcomes? Reasonable people can disagree on the size and scope of government, but when the tool becomes the goal, both the economy and the trust that makes policy possible begin to erode. Here's my take. The federal workforce does need modernization. Some programs have outlived their moment, others deserve to grow. But trying to right-size by threatening mass eliminations during a countdown is like rewiring an airplane mid-flight. If the mission is fiscal credibility, design a transparent path. Caps, pay-fors, performance audits, and bipartisan sunsets. If the mission is leverage, be honest about the trade-offs. Markets can price risk, families cannot. If a clean extension passes, take the win for stability and use the breathing room for real oversight. If it doesn't, the White House should release the criteria for any eliminations and open a public docket for comment before final decisions. That won't satisfy everyone, but it will convert fear into facts, and facts are the beginning of better policy. We'll keep tracking how this unfolds and what it means for jobs, services, and your wallet. If you found this useful, share it with one person who needs clarity right now and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the updates. Whatever your politics, remember that budgets are choices. Choices are values, and values deserve daylight. Stay informed, ask hard questions, and keep your community in the loop, because policy is personal, and every decision in Washington lands on someone's table.